Tensions in the South China Sea are heating up once again. A recent maritime patrol involving the United States and the Philippines near Scarborough Shoal has drawn sharp reactions from Beijing, raising concerns about a possible escalation in one of the world's most contested waterways. According to maritime tracking data shared by the Sea Light Foundation, American and Philippine vessels operated roughly 35 to 40 nautical miles from the Chinese-occupied feature. The move was seen by many analysts as a strong signal of growing coordination between Washington and Manila in response to China's expanding presence in the region. The Sea Light Foundation described the patrol as a major development for the U.S. Philippine alliance. In a statement posted on social media, the organization said the direct involvement of the U.S. Coast Guard in supporting Philippine efforts against what it called China's maritime aggression marked a significant step forward in bilateral cooperation. For the Philippines, the patrol was more than a routine exercise. It was a demonstration that Manila is not standing alone in the face of Chinese pressure in the West Philippine Sea, the term the Philippines uses for portions of the South China Sea within its exclusive economic zone. Scarborough Shoal has long been one of the most sensitive flashpoints between China and the Philippines. The reef lies about 120 nautical miles from the Philippine island of Luzon, making it well within Manila's claimed exclusive economic zone. It is much farther from China's Hainan Island, roughly 350 to 400 nautical miles away. Known as Bajo de Masinloc in the Philippines and Huangyan Island in China, the shoal became the center of a major standoff in 2012. That confrontation began when Philippine authorities attempted to arrest Chinese fishermen operating in the area, only to be blocked by Chinese maritime surveillance ships. The standoff lasted for weeks and eventually ended with Chinese forces maintaining control of the shoal. Since then, China has kept a near-permanent presence there through Coast Guard vessels, maritime militia ships, and occasional naval deployments. Following the recent U.S. Philippine patrol, Beijing reacted quickly. The People's Liberation Army Southern Theater Command and the China Coast Guard announced that they had conducted exercises around Scarborough Shoal. Chinese authorities said the drills were aimed at countering what they described as rights violation and provocative acts. The Philippine military dismissed the Chinese response, viewing the exercises as another attempt by Beijing to justify its continued presence in disputed waters. This pattern has become familiar in the South China Sea. One side conducts a patrol or operation, and the other responds with military or Coast Guard activities, each accusing the other of provocation. One reason the latest developments are attracting so much attention is concern that China may be preparing for a larger build-up at Scarborough Shoal. Last fall, Beijing declared the area a national nature reserve. While that might sound harmless on the surface, Philippine officials and regional observers worry it could be the first step in a broader strategy. Those concerns are rooted in history. In previous disputes across the South China Sea, China often began with civilian or administrative measures before moving toward extensive militarization. Artificial islands, airstrips, radar systems, missile sites, and fortified bases were gradually developed on reefs that had once been little more than submerged rocks. Manila fears Scarborough Shoal could follow the same path. The United States has also been paying close attention. In recent months, Washington kept a carrier strike group stationed in the South China Sea for an extended period, signaling its commitment to maintaining a military presence in the region. American officials have repeatedly stated that freedom of navigation and the defense of allies remain core US interests in the Indo-Pacific. Under the U.S. Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty, an armed attack on Philippine forces, vessels, or aircraft in the Pacific could trigger U.S. obligations to assist. That treaty has become increasingly important as confrontations between Chinese and Philippine ships grow more frequent. At the 2026 Shangri-La Dialogue, Philippine Secretary of National Defense Gibo Teodoro addressed reports that China might be placing structures at Scarborough Shoal. He cautioned that the information was still preliminary, describing the data as raw, but emphasized that the armed forces of the Philippines were actively monitoring the situation. Even the possibility of new construction has raised alarms in Manila. If permanent structures were confirmed, it could mark a major shift in the dispute and potentially increase military tensions in the region. The Scarborough issue is part of a much larger geopolitical struggle. China claims nearly the entire South China Sea through its 9-dash line, a sweeping claim that overlaps with the claims of the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Taiwan. In 2016, an international arbitration tribunal ruled that China's expansive claims had no legal basis under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. The tribunal also found that Scarborough Shoal is a traditional fishing ground accessible to multiple nations. China rejected the ruling and continues to assert control through its Coast Guard, maritime militia, and naval forces. For Southeast Asian countries, the concern is not only territorial sovereignty but also access to fisheries, energy resources, and critical shipping lanes. Roughly a third of global maritime trade passes through the South China Sea, making stability there vital for the world economy. The recent patrols and counter-drills suggest that competition around Scarborough Shoal is entering a new phase. The US and Philippines appear increasingly willing to operate together in contested waters, while China is showing no sign of backing down from its claims. The danger is that repeated encounters between Coast Guard ships, naval vessels, and aircraft could lead to an accident or miscalculation. Even a minor collision or confrontation could quickly escalate because of the alliance commitments and nationalist pressures involved. At the same time, both Washington and Beijing are likely aware that a direct military clash would carry enormous risks. That may encourage both sides to continue operating in the grey zone, using coast guards, maritime militias, legal claims, and limited military demonstrations rather than outright war. Scarborough Shoal remains one of the most dangerous flashpoints in the Indo-Pacific. The latest U.S. Philippine patrol and China's immediate response highlight how contested the area has become and how closely the world is watching. As Manila investigates reports of possible new Chinese structures and regional powers continue to maneuver in the South China Sea, the situation around Scarborough Shoal could become a key indicator of where the broader US-China rivalry is heading next. The question now is whether diplomacy and deterrence can keep tensions from spiraling further, or whether the shoal will once again become the center of a major international crisis.